I bought a strange glass box by the roadside, only to discover a miniature magical world inside. A toy sword I casually dropped became a holy relic that sealed the earth. The remains of a lobster claw I finished eating became the skeleton of a prehistoric behemoth that shook the lands. In their eyes, I am the Supreme Deity ruling over eternity. Yet, they have no idea that I am merely a cancer patient with only a few months left to live. After ordering a $50 luxury lobster delivery, I began to study this projection glass box. Turning on the switch, a vast desert immediately appeared, with tiny figures seemingly weaving through it. Using a magnifying glass, I finally saw clearly. It was a young girl. She was covered in wounds, with two ferocious shadow frost wolves chasing her from behind. With a face full of despair, the girl pointed behind her. A runic sword engraved with incantations turned into a streak of light, piercing toward the two black wolves. However, they dodged it easily, pounced on her, and began to tear at her. This holographic projection is too realistic. I couldn't bear to watch. The old man who sold me the box said this thing seemed interactive. I casually picked up two toothpicks and dropped them from above the glass box toward those two frost wolves. The toothpicks fell from the sky. The two giant wolves, no more than a few millimeters in size, were instantly skewered by the wooden sticks, which looked like pillars supporting the heaven sand pinned to the ground. Elara was struck with shock. She hurriedly looked around, but saw nothing but wasteland. Having no time to think, she quickly consumed a recovery potion and sat cross-legged to meditate and heal. 15 minutes later, some of her strength returned. She walked up to the two massive wooden pillars and shuddered at the sight of the brutally killed wolf demons. This power was undoubtedly that of a great being. I am Elara, an apprentice of Stormhold. I thank the senior for your assistance. However, a long time passed with no reply. At that moment, the senior Elara spoke of was opening the door to pick up his $50 delivery. I carried the box of luxury shrimp back to my room. Just as I was about to eat, I suddenly saw the tiny girl in the glass box kneeling before the toothpicks, saying something. I leaned in slowly and finally heard her words. Thank you, Lord Protector, for your help. Please, Lord Protector, take back your holy relics so they are not seized by outsiders. Holy relics? These are just two toothpicks. The interactive effects of this projection are truly insane. It even comes with auto-generated plots. I ignored her and watched the girl while I ate. Although she was tiny, she was truly beautiful, the classic look of a Western fantasy elf. Elara waited anxiously, pacing around the toothpicks. Eventually, she stumbled and fell weakly to the ground. She hadn't eaten for half a month. Her cultivation was only at the 13th level of a magic apprentice. She couldn't yet sustain her life purely on mana. She turned her gaze to the shadow wolf carcasses. To survive, she no longer cared about anything else. Elara cut off a piece of raw wolf meat and put it in her mouth. The immense stench almost made her vomit, but to live, she had to swallow it. I was stunned by this scene. I gently placed a lobster claw next to the little person. A massive, fire-red object fell right before her eyes, making the ground shake several times. What prehistoric sea monster's claw is this? It's so massive. Eat it. A voice suddenly echoed in her heart. Elara hurriedly looked around, still seeing nothing. But she understood the great Lord Protector had helped her again. Thank you, Lord Protector. Just smelling the aroma made Elara feel her strength surging back. She tentatively channeled her runic sword to cut it, but heard only the sound of metal grinding. Her magic sword actually snapped in half, yet the giant claw didn't have a single scratch on it. Elara looked at her broken sword in disbelief, tears welling in her eyes. Her sect was already poor. This runic sword had been painstakingly forged for her by her mentor and senior sister. Meanwhile, I watched the little person with great interest. These 800 yuan were well spent. Look at that expression, she's about to cry. It's so lifelike. I decided to pry the claw open to see how she would react. Then Elara heard a sound. She looked up in confusion to see a massive, golden hand of the void descend from the sky, grabbing the sea monster's claw with ease. With a crisp, thunderous crack, the indestructible shell actually split open. The golden hand slowly vanished into the air. Elara's mind was in a whirl. She knew the Lord Protector was strong, but she hadn't expected him to be this strong. Seeing the white, tender meat, she could no longer hold back and began to eat voraciously, ignoring all decorum. As I watched Elara devour the food like a hungry wolf, my own appetite improved significantly. But then I noticed something wrong. How did the shrimp meat in the box actually decrease? Why would a projection cause a physical object to disappear? I looked at the two toothpicks again. They were actually stained with the blood of the wolf demons. No, this is too ridiculous. Has the cancer moved to my brain and started causing hallucinations? I rubbed my hair and decided to run a simple experiment. I observed the surroundings and realized the scenery in the glass box always centered on the girl. I couldn't see anything further away. Does this projection view only show things within 300 meters of the girl? While I was thinking, I suddenly saw the ground squirming. Something underground was rapidly approaching the girl. I hurriedly warned, "Look out!" Elara, half full from her meal, heard the voice and instinctively gripped her broken sword, looking around alertly. In the distance, yellow sand billowed as something sped toward her. An abyss sandworm. Damn it, aren't these monsters usually dormant? Why are they suddenly awake? Wait, Elara seemed to understand something and looked back at the wolf corpses. In that moment of distraction, the nearly 20-meter-long abyss sandworm reached her, opening its cavernous mouth filled with fangs. Elara gripped the broken runic sword and leapt upward, striking first. The sandworm clearly didn't take her seriously. In a moment of negligence, Elara plunged half of her broken sword straight into the worm's forehead. The worm thrashed in pain, twisting its massive body. Watching this, I grew anxious. I noticed a lighter sitting on my desk. I grabbed it and tore out the piezo igniter, the electronic sparking component inside. Move! Elara heard the Lord Protector's voice again and allowed her body to be flung aside by the sandworm. At that moment, the world changed. The sky, which had been clear moments ago, was suddenly filled with an ominous wind. Thick black clouds covered the sun in an instant. The abyss sandworm looked up in terror, its entire body trembling. It wanted to flee, but the divine pressure from the sky gave it no chance. A terrifying bolt of blue-purple lightning tore through the firmament, splitting the world apart and falling squarely on the abyss sandworm. Then the dark clouds dispersed, and the sun shone once again. The molten crater in the ground bore witness to the horror that had just occurred. I breathed a sigh of relief seeing the little earthworm get zapped to death by my lighter clicker. I had finally saved the little person. Are you okay? I am well. Thank you for saving my life, Lord Protector. I have no way to repay you, but if you have a request, I shall obey. Anything? Yes, anything. Do you have any more flying swords? The runic sword is destroyed, but I have a wooden runic sword my mentor gave me for practice. Do you need it, Lord Protector? Give it to me. Upon hearing this, Elara hurriedly searched her spatial storage bag and pulled out a wooden levitating sword. She didn't know how to give it to him, so she carefully planted it in the ground. Lord Protector, this is a practice sword refined by my mentor. It contains a levitating storm array and is embedded with a basic mana crystal. Even a commoner can control it through mental intent. It is used to practice sword control techniques, Elara explained earnestly. Looking at the wooden sword, which was thinner than a strand of hair, picking it up by hand was out of the question. I carefully reached a pair of tweezers into the glass box. Suddenly, two massive silver metal pillars appeared in the sky, gently plucking the wooden sword from the ground. Elara was baffled. The Lord Protector seemed very unwilling to show his face. Was he restricted by some law of the plains? I carefully placed the tiny wooden sword on my palm to examine it. The world inside the box was actually real. Lord Protector, can I take this sea monster claw with me? My companions have been besieged by the orc army for nearly a year. They won't hold much longer. Tell me more. Elara respectfully explained everything. It turned out her mentor had founded the Stormhold sect in this desolate frontier. A year ago, the orc tribes, which had previously lived in peace with Stormhold, launched a massive invasion. Stormhold almost fell, but luckily, other magic sects on the border joined in to successfully resist. However, the orcs immediately changed their strategy, surrounding Storm Mountain and cutting off all supplies, intending to starve the mages inside. Elara had been sent out to seek reinforcements, or at least bring back supplies if reinforcement failed. After listening to her explanation, I understood. Take it all. If it's not enough, I have more here. It's enough, more than enough. This prehistoric sea monster meat is rich in mana and can strengthen the physical body. It's comparable to a top-tier recovery potion. With this spiritual meat, we can surely repel the orcs. Elara pulled out a storage bag engraved with spatial runes and waved it toward the lobster claw. The claw vanished instantly. Is it full? Yes, it is full, Lord Protector. I was planning to take it out to play with it later. I didn't expect the spatial bags in Western fantasy to have such small capacities. Lord Protector, I am preparing to return to the Mage Tower. Would you like to come and see? I have things to do. Well, see. In that case, Elara will take her leave. If you ever have time, Stormhold will always welcome you. With that, Elara hurried into the depths of the desolate frontier. I stood outside the glass box watching her move. Sure enough, as she moved, the scenery inside the box changed accordingly. At the foot of Storm Mountain, layers of dark shadows surrounded Stormhold. Arcane glows floated around the mountain, with lightning occasionally leaping across it. That was the ultimate magical barrier of Stormhold's storm aegis. The orcs couldn't break it through force, so they resorted to a siege. In the center of the siege camp, a strong orc with a wolf's head and a human body waited anxiously. He was the orc leader, Garrick. I said from the beginning, resources in our desolate frontier are scarce. If we fight humans, we all end up as paupers. Even if we rob them, will our race flourish? Exactly. If we keep wasting time like this, the humans might survive, but we orcs will surely be drained of our vitality. Just then, an old man in high-ranking mage robes appeared in the center of the camp. Leader Garrick, why have you delayed the attack? Lord, that magical barrier is very powerful. We cannot break it, we can only wait them out. I think you simply don't want to break it. A powerful mana pressure weighed down, making the surrounding orcs struggle to breathe. An archmage. Why would a terrifying existence at the rank of archmage come to such a backwater place? Please calm your anger, Lord. You may not know, but other mage towers, fearing we would target them next, have gathered inside to unite against us. Although the sects here are small, once they unite, the barrier's power is not to be underestimated.
Regardless, I don't care anymore.
Things on the archbishop side have mostly stabilized. Now it's time to deal with these disobedient fellows. Garrick cursed in his heart. What did I do to deserve this? Why must our orcs be cannon fodder for the internal squabbles of you high-ranking human mages? But you are still somewhat useful. At least you've trapped this place and haven't let anyone escape. Actually, one female apprentice escaped. But don't worry, Lord, I've already sent shadow wolves to hunt her down. The old man paused and pulled out a magical parchment scroll. The person drawn on it was none other than Elara. Is it this one? Yes, at that moment, a small orc ran in and reported, "Chief, the kin sent to hunt the human girl are dead." "What? She got away?" "No, the woman is running back here now." "They'll go kill her," Garrick said. "No, let her return." "Well, send the entire Stormhold to hell together," the old man sneered. But Garrick thought Stormhold used all their strength to break our siege just to seek help. If she brings back a powerful force, can we really contend with the Astral Sanctuary? The Astral Sanctuary was the #1 magic sect of the Highland Avalon and the leader of the Holy Alliance. Garrick knew how terrifying this old man was, but he hadn't realized his background was that grand. How did a small, remote sect like Stormhold offend the Astral Sanctuary? How could a little girl who wasn't even a high-level mentor merit a personal hunt by an archmage? Intuition told him it was best if he didn't know the answers. Back in my room, the tiny wooden sword on the table trembled slightly, then slowly began to grow until it turned into a 3-foot-long runic sword covered in mysterious magical symbols. I picked it up, stunned. The wooden sword was unexpectedly light and felt warm in my hand. But how was I supposed to use it? I tried to visualize the sword taking flight in my mind. The runic sword trembled slightly, slowly left my hand, and floated in the air, flying slowly through the room in the direction of my mental focus. I quickly controlled the sword to fly back, my heart pounding wildly. Magic items taken from the box could actually be used normally in reality. I might not have to die. If I could take out the recovery potions from the magic world, maybe I could cure my cancer. I suppressed my excitement. I had to confirm one thing first. Who exactly was the old man who sold me the box? Half an hour later, I arrived at the stall from that morning, only to find the old man and his stall gone. A nearby stall owner laughed. "Young man, were you scammed by that old man too? Let me tell you, his son was actually a grave robber who trafficked artifacts. The son dug them up, and the old man sold them." "Ah, is that so?" "Well, a few days ago, the son died when an ancient tomb collapsed on him. Then the old man died of a heart attack shortly after. So, you're definitely not getting your 800 yuan back." I was stunned. The glass box was dug out from underground, and everyone who touched it died? But thinking about the fact that I was in the late stages of cancer with only days to live, I suddenly wasn't afraid. Then my phone rang. It was my cousin, Leo. "I heard you quit and even threatened that Blackheart boss, Thorn." "Yeah, Thorn owed me wages." "All right then, come to Evergreen Peak. I've got a temporary job for you." Okay. Evergreen Peak was the largest mountain range in Silver Peak City. But as I walked, I didn't feel tired at all. It felt like there was a constant stream of mana inside me. Some strong hikers even tried to race me, but they couldn't even see my taillights. How is he jogging the whole way up? When did humans secretly evolve without telling me? I knew it must be the magic crystal on the runic sword injecting energy into me. Even without learning magic, it greatly enhanced my physique. I'd have to ask Elara for some meditation techniques later. I didn't seek to be invincible, just to not die early. At the summit, I reached a dilapidated old monastery. A monk in a linen robe waved at me. This was my cousin, Leo. "Look at my cleric license." These days, even being a monk requires official certification. "I heard clerics make a lot of money. You've basically made it now, right?" Leo's face soured. "That was in the past. Now, business at remote monasteries like ours has been stolen by those large modern cathedrals in the city center and New Age spiritualists. Everyone goes to the city to pray. By the way, do you want to be an apprentice monk? It doesn't pay much lately, but it provides food and shelter." "They'll think about it," I declined. Leo had helped me plenty in the past. I decided it was my turn to help him. That night, I went to a dark forest on the mountain and summoned the runic sword. Elara said it had a built-in levitation array that even a commoner could use with their will. I carefully placed the sword on the ground, then stepped onto it with both feet, like stepping on an anti-gravity skateboard. Take off. The wooden sword slowly rose into the air, then gradually accelerated. The mountain peaks grew smaller and smaller. Wait, something felt missing. I thought for a bit, took out my phone, and played a grand, epic fantasy BGM. Now it felt right. I flew over Evergreen Peak, laughing. Shortly after I left, some people camping on the mountain looked up in a daze, staring at each other in disbelief. Sword riding? No, a flying mage? Did any of you record that? I did. If I post this online, it'll definitely go viral. I returned home in the middle of the night and crashed onto my bed, exhausted. What I didn't know was that this test flight caused a massive stir throughout Evergreen Peak. News of someone flying on a glowing sword over Evergreen Peak immediately hit the trending charts. Coincidentally, there was an old monastery on Evergreen Peak, and it was quite dilapidated and inconspicuous. Isn't this a deliberate attempt to hide as a peerless mage? Netizens speculated that there was a hidden magical master in that monastery. The next morning, the Evergreen Peak Monastery was completely surrounded. Leo's mentor woke up and looked at the crowd in a daze. These people weren't there for service or donations. They immediately asked if he knew levitation magic or sword riding. But the old head soon realized this was a massive wave of traffic. The monastery speakers began playing that epic BGM from the previous night. Whenever someone asked if he could fly, he wouldn't answer, only giving a profound and mysterious smile. This only fueled people's imaginations further. The scene left the priests at the city cathedral baffled. Skipping God and going straight to learning magic, are we? I saw the trending news and couldn't help but chuckle. Leo is probably swamped now. Should I find another chance to go fly? In the continent of Eldoria, Elara traveled in a hurry, not daring to delay for a moment, fearing she would run into pursuers. Fortunately, the goddess of fortune was with her today, and she reached the foot of Storm Mountain without incident. She stood at a distance, looking on. The barren land was covered with ring after ring of orc camps surrounding the entire mountain. Orc scouts with wings patrolled the skies and ground. Elara carefully returned to the castle's interior using a hidden teleportation array she had set up when she left. Elara, a familiar voice called out. Elara turned to see a thin girl standing behind her. Sister Arya. The two hugged each other excitedly. It's wonderful, Elara. Mentor said the barrier won't last past today. All the high-grade mana stones in the tower are drained. If you hadn't come back, we would have been trapped to death. Hearing the commotion, the lords of other magic sects seeking refuge in Stormhold hurried over. Seeing Elara unharmed, they breathed a sigh of relief. Miss Elara, did you bring reinforcements? Is the Holy Alliance of Avalon willing to help us? Seeing the desperate gazes of the lords, Elara knew the situation was urgent. She prepared to take out the massive sea monster claw. But then, Ilara's mentor walked over with a cold face, pulled Elara straight to the council hall, and slammed the heavy oak doors shut. Mage Seraphina showed no excitement at her apprentice's return. Instead, she was extraordinarily angry. What did you come back for? Didn't I tell you not to come back once you were teleported out? Seraphina's anger wasn't without reason. Seeking help and finding supplies were just excuses she used to trick the other lords. The moment she exhausted her mana to teleport Elara out, she never intended for her to return. Coming back was a death sentence. Mentor, I couldn't just leave you all. Elara looked Seraphina in the eye. She knew her mentor wanted her to live, but didn't she want her mentor to live as well? Even if she had to die, she would die with her mentor. Seeing the stubborn look in Ilara's eyes, Seraphina knew there was no point in arguing. Why are you so foolish? Mentor, I brought supplies. Supplies? They're useless. A few recovery potions can't save everyone. No, Mentor, these are supplies that can truly change the course of the battle. Then take them out and let's see. Mentor, this place is too small. Let's go to the courtyard. The two walked out of the hall. The lords of the various sects saw them and looked on expectantly. Just as Seraphina was about to speak, the world before her suddenly went dark. She looked up and saw a red claw as huge as a small mountain appear before them. Every mage was stunned. What prehistoric sea monster's limb is this? It's too big. Lords, this sea monster meat is rich in mana, and its energy is gentle. It can be absorbed directly without alchemical refinement and even strengthens the physical body. Mage Seraphina turned around numbly. Where on earth did my apprentice get this? Did she stumble into a demigod dragon's nest? She grabbed Elara and said solemnly, tell me, what happened on your journey? Hearing this, the other mages also looked over curiously. Elara nodded and began to recount everything. Gigantic logs like pillars falling from the sky to pin the shadow wolves. The summoning of thousands of thunders that turned the abyss sandworm to ash in an instant. The expressions on everyone's faces grew more and more incredible. Sister Arya summarized. In short, Sister met an extremely ancient and terrifyingly powerful Supreme Deity. Elara nodded repeatedly. The other lords asked, Miss Elara, could we invite that ancient god to meet us? We are in a crisis. If we can persuade that existence to help, everything might change. But Ilara's expression turned grim. She didn't know how to actively contact the Lord Protector. Seraphina saw through their thoughts and said coldly, we cannot pin our hopes on someone we've never met. Besides, that person might not be as omnipotent as we imagine. Hearing this, everyone snapped out of it. After all, Elara was just a low-level magic apprentice. Her descriptions of thousands of thunders and shielding the heavens with a hand were very likely exaggerations born of her limited experience. Elara was extremely anxious. The Lord Protector is really powerful. Why won't these stubborn old mages believe it? Meanwhile, outside the glass box, I had been watching the little people since I woke up. I felt a bit annoyed. Hey, you pixel-sized people who can't even handle a lobster claw. How dare you doubt me? Do you want me to literally shield the heavens with my hand? Elara, who was still trying to explain, froze and looked at the sky. The others also stopped talking and looked up, but they saw nothing but clouds. What do you need right now? Elara heard my words and excitedly turned to her mentor. The ancient god is asking what we need. Seraphina's expression became even more solemn, her face filled with internal struggle. If they asked that deity to take action personally, the price would be immense, likely a soul sacrifice. After thinking, she knelt on one knee, hand over her chest, and said respectfully, Great Existence, please grant us a high-grade storm gem to maintain the operation of the storm Aegis barrier. This was the safest way she could think of with the smallest price. They wouldn't need the deity to act. They just needed to maintain their magical defense. The desolate frontier was barren. Though they were surrounded, as long as they had the sea monster meat, they could hold out for decades. The orcs were numerous and consumed vast amounts of food. They would be the first to collapse. Outside the glass box, I was stunned by the request. What is a high-grade storm gem? Where am I supposed to find a fantasy item like that? Wait, things I drop into this miniature world from outside seem to have miraculous magical effects. I rummaged through a box in my drawer and found a round button battery. I thought, a battery has electricity, so that counts as a storm attribute, right? In the miniature world, world, Seraphina was nervous when there was no movement from the sky for a long time. Was her request too high, and had she angered the ancient god? Just as she was about to apologize, she saw the clouds disperse. Everyone looked up to see a round, incredibly smooth, giant metal object falling from the sky. It landed in the plaza before the castle, smashing a massive crater. It was a perfect circular silver metal disc with no runes on it, yet it gleamed with a cold silver light. A voice like thunder boomed from the sky. This is a battery, the Tempest font. Looking at the giant metal circle, the mages looked at each other in confusion. None of them had ever seen a substance with no magic patterns that contained such violent energy. Seraphina told the others to back away while she slowly approached the Tempest font. She placed her hand on the cold metal shell, slowly extending her mental intent into the interior. Boom! The sky, clear just a moment ago, was instantly covered in dark clouds. Countless violent blue-white lightning bolts poured from the Tempest font into the sky like giant snakes. The entire storm mountain was covered in this blinding light. Seraphina staggered back and spat out a mouthful of blood. This is the true essence of the storm. Seraphina's eyes trembled, unable to believe what she was seeing. This was a Tempest font far purer than the holy relics worshipped by the large sects in Avalon. Absorbing the lightning power here could not only enhance magic but even reshape one's physical body. Now, a brand new lightning pool lay before them. Everyone swallowed hard. Is everything he drops this terrifying? To what level has this ancient god's power reached? Seeing the blood on Seraphina's lips, I was startled. I quickly put back the AAA and AA batteries I was about to take out. I thought the button battery wouldn't have enough power. From the look of it, it was a good thing I only used a small button battery. Otherwise, I might have fried Elara's mentor to a crisp. I watched the little people below begin chanting incantations, using magic beams to connect the defense barrier to the positive and negative poles of the button battery. The electrical energy inside the battery immediately turned into a continuous stream of mana, powering the array. The previously dim storm aegis slowly grew bright and blinding. Bolts of lightning leapt across the mountaintop, showing its terrifying power. So weird. I put my phone down. I had just recorded this with my phone, and it felt very strange. What is this? An eco-friendly new energy magic array? I rewatched the playback, laughing as I saw the robed little people busily building the magic array to connect to my button battery. The button battery slowly rose, floating above the castle's spire. Endless arcs of electricity were drawn out, filling the barrier. No button battery in the world has ever had such a glorious moment, right? With the barrier recharged, Seraphina finally breathed a sigh of relief. Seeing that the battery still held a vast amount of lightning power, she led everyone to sit directly beneath the floating battery to meditate and absorb the lightning energy. As they sat cross-legged, the faint arcs of electricity leaking from the battery slithered across their bodies like snakes, tempering their physical forms and mana circuits. With the enemy at the gates, every bit of strength mattered. At the foot of Storm Mountain, the orcs watched the floating giant metal disc in curiosity. This was the first time they had seen such a strange object since they began the siege. Stormhold's magical barrier has become stronger. Is it because of that silver disc with no runes? The orcs were baffled. Just a few days ago, the barrier looked like it was about to collapse. Why did it suddenly burst with such terrifying aura? Chief Garrick noticed this too, thinking back to the human girl who had returned. Lord, that human girl seems to have brought back powerful assistance. Archmage Septimus snorted coldly. Cheap tricks. Seraphina, after all these years you still only know these small tricks. That disc has no magical fluctuations at all. It's not a magical creation. It might work to scare these low-intelligence orcs, but unfortunately, she probably didn't expect me to chase her here personally. Garrick's heart sank seeing that the human old man was still so arrogant. You're an archmage. Of course you have the skills, but should we orcs be your cannon fodder to tank the lightning? Garrick wanted to say more, but the old man interrupted him. Don't worry. Even if it's true, he'll deal with that so-called assistance. He'll show you inferior subhumans of the desolate frontier what demigod-level arcane methods look like. The next morning, Elara opened her eyes early. Arcs of electricity leapt across her body, and her eyes glowed with blue-green light. The combination of lightning tempering and sea monster meat had terrifically strengthened her body. I've become a bat lineage? She clenched her fist in surprise. Her physical strength could now take on an adult minotaur. She was no weaker than a high-level knight. The lords of the various sects also opened their eyes, looking at their bodies in disbelief. Just the leaking lightning remnants had greatly enhanced their physiques. Praise the great ancient god. Some mages reacted and hurriedly bowed toward the sky. When Seraphina opened her eyes, she looked at Elara and sighed. Elara, has your mana level still not broken through? Mentor, still a 14th level magic apprentice. But this is fine. I feel full of power. Traditionally, a magic apprentice reaches a maximum of level 10 before becoming a mentor. But Elara had reached level 14 with no sign of breaking through the rank. Elara, you've always been curious about your origins, right? Among those orcs, I sense an extremely dangerous and familiar aura. If I'm not mistaken, it's an inquisitor from the astral sanctuary here to hunt us. More specifically, to kill you. If we survive this, it's time I tell you the whole truth. Seraphina stood up, cast a levitation spell, and rose into the sky. Below Storm Mountain, a figure in ornate mage robes also slowly floated up. Sister Arya cried out, "That's a human mage. Why is he with the orc army?" I, who was staring at the box, became serious. This looked like a boss fight. Should I help them? Better not. If I used my hand to poke him, I might flatten the whole mountain. Let me think, what precise weapon do I have in reality? I rummaged through my room. Meanwhile, Seraphina looked at the white-haired old man in the distance and spoke slowly. High Inquisitor Septimus, long time no see. You still recognize me? Seraphina, you have quite the methods, hiding from the council for 20 years. No wonder you chose to leave Avalon with that bastard child. Septimus was surrounded by 7 flying magic swords glowing with deadly light. His mana pressure reached its peak, even distorting the surrounding space. For the sake of our former membership in the Holy Alliance, hand over Elara and he'll give you a quick death. Otherwise, Septimus, must the astral sanctuary be this relentless? Septimus sneered, and the 7 flying swords danced in the air, sending out sword chi. Then, the 7 swords burst with blinding arcane light, gathering together to form a 100-meter-long shadow of a giant sword that seemed to split the heavens. Be destroyed. The giant sword tore through the air, heading straight for the core of the barrier. Seraphina hurriedly cast spells to block it, but in the next moment, Septimus had teleported right in front of her. A lightning shield appeared around Seraphina, but Septimus used his superior combat experience to find a flaw in her defense, turning his hand into an arcane blade and instantly shattering the lightning defense. Seraphina spat out blood and fell like a kite with a broken string, nearly losing her levitation. Septimus had been in the Archmage realm for centuries, while Seraphina hadn't even touched the threshold. She was no match for him. It seems you are truly determined to protect that bastard child. Then I shall grant your wish. At that moment, the giant arcane sword slashed through the storm aegis barrier and cut the tower at the center of the array in half. No one could stop it. That was a full-strength strike from an Archmage. The orcs below stared in awe as the barrier that had frustrated them for a year was shattered so easily. In the sky, Septimus shouted like a booming bell. Garrick, what are you waiting for? All units, charge. Level this place. Instantly, the orc army surrounding the mountain let out bloodthirsty roars, moving toward the mountain like a black tide. Without the defense barrier, these weak mages couldn't hold them back. The mages on the mountain fell into despair. Who could have thought their ultimate defense would be cleaved so easily? Sister Elara, run. Arya saw the situation and tried to pull Elara away. But soon, a figure crashed heavily into the ground from the ski. It was Seraphina. She was in a pathetic state, her robes torn and her aura weak. Run. I let you live for 20 years. And you still think you can run? Septimus descended slowly like a god of death. If you don't want to die, hurry and call your so-called ancient god to save you. It'll be too late if you wait any longer. Hearing this, Elara was in turmoil. The Lord Protector had already helped her so much, and the monster before her was too strong. What if the Lord Protector was limited by the laws of the planes and suffered a backlash because of her? Humph, it wouldn't matter even if a real god descended today. At that moment, outside the glass box, I remembered the high-powered laser pointer I bought online to play with my cat. I pulled it out of the drawer. The high temperature generated by its focused light should be useful in a microworld, right? As I was about to press the button, a cold female voice echoed in the weakened, Seraphinus mind. Seraphina, stop resisting. Admit your fault to the Archbishop and hand over Elara and the Crimson Divine Liquid. The Archbishop guarantees he will immediately send holy knights to spare your life. Hearing the familiar voice via telepathy, Seraphina smiled bitterly. Do you think I took her and fled back then for no reason? Elara, pray to the great ancient god now. Tell him that if he is willing to bring down divine punishment, I am willing to sacrifice the holy relic Crimson Divine Liquid to him. Seraphina could die, but Ilaroth, child of the previous Saintessust, not die here. However, before Elara could even kneel to pray, an extremely bright red had suddenly appeared in the sky. Almost instantly, that red dot turned into a pillar of crimson light that pierced the universe. Like the divine punishment of legend, it fell straight down from beyond the heavens. The red light landed precisely on Septimus' head, completely enveloping the arrogant Archmage in an instant. Septimus desperately summoned defense shields, but he discovered to his despair that before absolute divine punishment, all magic was a joke. He tried to teleport away, but the red light locked onto him like a ghost. Wherever the red light swept over the ground, the rocks melted instantly into boiling lava. In just a few seconds, Septimus didn't even have time to scream before he was burned to ashes. Then, the red light vanished, the sky returned to peace, and it was as if nothing had happened. But the boiling lava pit on the ground was proof of the horror. A century-old Archmage didn't even leave a bone behind. He was vaporized. Meanwhile, outside the glass box, I released the button on the laser pointer and shook my hand. Wow, this laser pointer is that powerful against micropeople. Carbonized him instantly. Elara, are you okay? I asked the box. I'm fine, great Lord Protector. I'm fine. Besides being completely terrified by the divine punishment, Elara didn't have a single scratch. Hearing Elara talking to the air, Seraphina realized the Supreme Deity was communicating with her apprentice again. Elara quickly mentioned the sacrifice, the Crimson Divine Liquid. Elara hurriedly said, Lord Protector, my mentor has a legendary magic holy relic she wishes to sacrifice to you, named Crimson Divine Liquid. Let's talk about that later. You guys clean up first. It's a mess down there, I said. The Lord Protector says to clean up the mess first, Elara relayed. Chief Garrick was now covered in cold sweat, his legs shaking. He knew the indescribable existence in the sky must be looking down on them. An existence that could vaporize an Archmage in an instant could wipe them out with a breath. Garrick sprinted to Elara and knelt on both knees with a loud thud. Lady Seraphina, Miss Elara, I was blinded by greed to start this war. You can kill me or do as you please, but the warriors behind me were only following my orders. They never truly breached the walls. Could you please spare my tribesmen? I swear to lead them back to the far north and never step into human territory again. To ensure the survival of his race, this was the only way Garrick could think of. The mages of the various sects were furious, but seeing the three-me turtle orc chief terrified like this, they didn't know how to react and looked to Seraphina. Seraphina shook her head. I have no right to decide your fate. Let the ancient god decide. Outside the glass box, I heard their request. I knew these little people weren't truly evil. They were coerced by that old man. More importantly, in the orc army, I saw subhuman races with cat ears and tails catgirls. I couldn't kill them. I had to keep them as pets for now. Let them work for you, I said. Elara was confused, wondering if she heard correctly. The Lord Protector says, he wants to keep you as pets? Keep us as pets? What does that mean? Garrick was stunned. It means, like how human nobles keep hunting dogs, Elara explained awkwardly. Garrick felt a surge of anger. Although they were currently fish on a chopping block, the proud orc race had dignity. A warrior can be killed, but not. Just then, a giant piece of meat with a golden, crispy surface fell from the sky, landing heavily on the ground near the mountain. The meat was like a small hill, emitting a fatal, mouth-watering aroma and suffocatingly rich mana. The Lord Protector says this is food for you, as rations for being recruited. If it's not enough, he has more, Elara said. Garrick's words, not humiliated, were stuck in his throat. He stared blankly at the unimaginably huge mountain of meat, his mouth wide open. This is a reward for us? Yes. You can eat now. Line up, don't fight. Upon hearing this, the ferocious orcs rushed toward the giant mountain of fried chicken like mad. Having lived in poverty and eaten dirt in the wasteland their whole lives, where would they have smelled such an alluring spice? Where would they have seen divine meat with such immense mana? Garrick's face changed instantly. Oh my, Miss Elara, you were so wise. Actually, although Garrick, look fierce, I actually have canine blood. I am a purebred hunting dog subhuman. Everyone has been mistaken, thinking I'm a wolf. Thank you, great ancient god, for helping me find my true self. Woof. Garrick crawled and scrambled toward the fried chicken like a real hungry dog. If he was any later, his subordinates would have eaten it all. Who said being a dog for a god was bad? Being a dog is great. Watching the orcs devouring the golden crispy skin, the high-level mages on the mountain swallowed hard. Actually, if I don't want to die, I think I could be a dog too, one old mage muttered. Elara hurriedly relayed my words. The Lord Protector says you humans should stop hanging around and go away. I was just lightening the mood. By the way, why does that mountain of meat look like a legendary bird? Could the Lord Protector have even slain a legendary fire phoenix? Outside the glass box, I had just finished a bucket of KFC original recipe chicken. That drumstick was one I had just casually dropped in. I didn't expect a common domestic chicken to be treated as a prehistoric phoenix in the micromagic world. It was already afternoon. After a day of organization, the humans and orcs below had finally cleaned up the battlefield and started rebuilding their base. I heard Elara say her mentor was going to sacrifice a magic holy relic to me. I reached down to take it, but fearing my hand was too big and might damage the micro buildings, I picked up the medical tweezers again. In the micro world, over the continent of Eldoria, a giant mechanical double rail tweezers with a silver metallic luster slowly broke through the clouds, approaching Stormhold. The orcs on the ground immediately prostrate themselves. Even Seraphina couldn't stop her body from trembling. This terrifying mechanical creation was undoubtedly a legendary Titan artifact that created the world. Soon, the tips of the giant silver tweezers descended. Elara hurriedly placed a spatial storage bag on the edge of the artifact. The metal pillars gently pinched the bag and carried it into the clouds, vanishing into the sky. After the pillars left, everyone took deep breaths. The pressure was so intense it felt like their hearts would stop. Wait, great and supreme god. Garrick suddenly roared toward the sky, hurriedly pulling out an oval-shaped fossil with ancient patterns from his chest. Great god, this is an ancient dragonstone egg worshipped by my tribe's ancestors for generations. It is said to contain the bloodline of an ancient dragon. Lord, please accept the loyalty of the hunting dog Garrick. Then, the silver mechanical rails that had just left descended once again. Seeing this, Garrick held the stone egg high above his head. The metal pillars precisely and gently gripped the stone egg, then vanished into the firmament once more. Seraphina looked at everyone. Lords, since we have all received the grace of the Supreme Deity and are all in this barren frontier, why don't we form a complete alliance? After today's battle with the Inquisitor, they all realized that the threat to the desolate frontier was never the orcs, but the arrogant high-level mages of Avalon. The Astral Sanctuary could send an Inquisitor who could turn the place upside down. If they didn't unite, would they just wait to die? Seraphina had thought the ancient god was interested in Elara's mythic core, but now she saw he casually dropped phoenix meat and storm fonts. He clearly didn't care for worldly things. Now she just needed to protect Elara well. Fine, we agree, the mages shouted in unison. Late at night, Elara sat on a rebuilt tower looking at the stars, missing the Lord Protector who had never shown his face. Then Seraphina walked up behind her. Mentor, do you think the Lord Protector is truly a legendary demigod? I suspect he is a true creator god or a high-dimensional existence not bound by the laws of the planes. A true god? Can a god interfere with the material world? Seraphina wasn't sure, but given the power to instantly vaporize an archmage, who else could it be but a true god? The Lord Protector chose you. He must have seen your potential. Elara, you possess an extremely rare mythic core in your body, which requires a vast amount of mana to advance. That is why you have been unable to break through the magic apprentice rank. Gods are different from us mortal mages. Their interference in the material realm must involve the laws of causality in the universe. So in the future, try not to actively pray for the Lord Protector to descend, lest he suffer a backlash from the laws. Then, Seraphina told Elara the whole truth she had hidden for all these years. Her mother, Seraphina's former mentor, was the noblest saintess of the astral sanctuary, Lyra. Years ago, Lyra went alone to the Abyss Sea, which was considered taboo, to seek the ultimate mysteries of magic. When she returned, she gave birth to Elara, but the infant leaked a hint of Abyss mana. Thus, rumors spread throughout Avalon that the saintess had consorted with an Abyss lord. Her grandfather, Astral Archbishop Valerius, was old and frail, stuck at the Archmage level for centuries and unable to reach the threshold of a demigod. His prestige in the Holy Alliance was in jeopardy. To preserve his power and status, he coldly chose to betray his own daughter, reporting Lyra to the council. In the end, Lyra self-detonated her mana source during her trial at the Astral Sanctuary's tribunal to protect her child. The high-level mages had no more excuses and retreated. When Lyra gave birth to Elara, she had already realized the girl was born with a mythic core. To prevent the greedy Valerius from tearing out the core for transplantation, Lyra entrusted Elara to Seraphina on her deathbed, telling her to flee Avalon. Thus, Seraphina took her and lived under assumed names, fleeing to this magic-depleted, desolate frontier. Who would have thought that after 20 years, those old monsters would still sniff out the scent of the mythic core? Elara's mind was a mess. She had never imagined her origin was so complicated. Daughter of a saintess, carrier of Abyss mana, born with a mythic core. Luckily, you met the great ancient god, and a disaster was avoided. Seraphina had been living in fear for 20 years, and today she could finally breathe a sigh of relief. With the protection of that indescribable great existence, she might die in battle one day, but Elara would surely survive. Outside the glass box, I was dumbstruck. Isn't this the classic protagonist template for a Western fantasy novel? Such a tragic backstory? Forget it, I can't wrap my head around it. Better sleep first. The next morning, I woke up to see the items I had taken out with the tweezers sitting quietly on my desk, and they had returned to their normal size for the real world. A spatial storage bag embroidered with runes, a crystal bottle containing a red liquid crimson divine liquid, a football-sized ancient dragonstone egg, and 7 3-foot-long runic swords gleaming with a cold light. Elara said these were high-grade magic weapons. In addition to these, there was a heavy parchment magic book with the title The Grimoire of Eternal Spring written in gold foil on the cover. Yes, I wanted to practice magic in the real world. A high-level mage wouldn't get cancer, right? I opened the ancient grimoire and began to study. Curiously, this high-level magic book didn't require me to memorize things by eye. I only needed to place my hand on the parchment and close my eyes, and the knowledge of mana circulation and elemental perception automatically turned into a mental stream, slowly imprinting onto my brain. I only struggled with some complex micromagic arrays, so I kept asking Elara through the box. Time passed day by day. For a whole month, I didn't leave my house once. The delivery drivers for pizza and burger shops almost knew my address by heart. During this time, Seraphina led the human mages and orc tribes to rebuild their homes. They moved away from the destroyed Storm Mountain to the ancient ancestral land of the orcs, where they began large-scale construction, building a grand city where magic and wildness coexisted. In this month, that giant lobster sea monster meat was finished by Elara alone. The ample spiritual protein, combined with her diligent meditation, allowed her to successfully reach the 19th level of a magic apprentice. A normal person would have broken through to become a mentor at level 10, but she had to reach level 20. That damn mythic core was like a bottomless pit. One day, my cousin Leo called again. "Hey Arthur, are you home? Yeah, what's up? Let's go out for a drink." A craft beer bar in the city center. We haven't hung out in a while. Soon, I arrived at the bar. Leo was already sitting at a corner table. After a few beers, I learned he had lost his job. Our rundown monastery on Evergreen Peak was quite busy for a while, but then someone filed a formal report. They said we hired people to fly drones with holographic projections to run a superstitious scam. The municipal bureau immediately revoked our religious license. After listening to his complaints, I felt the small crystal bottle in my pocket. I decided to go to Evergreen Peak again tonight to officially undergo the mana baptism and become a mage. A few hours later, in the middle of the night, when I reached the closed monastery again, I met Leos' mentor, the old priest, who was packing his bags. "You're Leos' brother, Arthur, right?" "Yes." "Do you have any instructions, father?" Leo is a good kid. He's almost 30. As his brother, helped me talk some sense into him. Being a cleric isn't what it used to be. Nowadays, only those commercialized megapastors in the city center make money. There's no future for him here on the mountain with me. See, my monastery has been shut down. Father, I think there are still many young people who like ancient mysticism. It's different. They want the kind of mages in fantasy movies and novels who can summon wind and rain. If God really granted magic, would our monastery be reduced to being demolished? The old priest smiled bitterly. Maybe there really is magic. Didn't many people see someone flying in the sky last month? That was just some city kids doing a drone light show. Forget it, I plan to retire in the countryside. This is the last bit of Leos allowance for this month. Please give it to him for me. The old man handed me an envelope and then walked down the mountain with heavy steps. I put the envelope away, staring at the deep night sky. Time passed slowly, and soon it was midnight. It's about time. I stood up and walked toward the uninhabited, steep forest behind the monastery. I opened the spatial storage bag and took out the exquisite crystal bottle. Inside the transparent glass, a large amount of red liquid, looking like a mixture of lava and blood, was constantly boiling and flowing. This was the crimson divine liquid. This was a miraculous object Elara's mother brought back from the Abyss Sea, possessing the terrifying power to change one's fate. It could allow a commoner with no magical talent to develop mana circuits and turn a mediocre person into an arcane genius in an instant. I took a deep breath of the cold winter air and crushed the crystal bottle. The red divine liquid didn't spill. Instead, it turned into countless glowing red threads, frantically seeping into my body through my palm. In just over 10 seconds, this power completely merged with my blood. The extremely violent mana continuously flushed through my veins and cells. The tearing pain almost made me pass out. I hurriedly operated the meditation technique from the grimoire of eternal spring in my mind, frantically digesting the terrifying power. Level 1 apprentice, level 2, level 3. The mana in my body soared like a rocket. In just 10 minutes, it broke through the peak barrier of a magic apprentice and slammed open the gates of the high adept realm. Rumble. Over Silver Peak City, where the moon had been high just a moment ago, dark clouds gathered instantly. Earth-shattering thunder roared in the sky, and thick bolts of blue lightning rolled in the black clouds as if the end of the world had come. Some young people camping halfway up Evergreen Peak crawled out of their tents, cursing. Damn it, didn't the Weather Bureau say it would be a clear sky tonight? They grumbled as they started packing. Look at the monastery on the summit. A girl screamed. Everyone followed her finger and saw a massive bolt of lightning that illuminated half the city, brutally tearing the sky and striking straight into the depths of the forest. And in that brilliant lightning, a figure floating in midair was struck directly by the lightning but remained completely unharmed. This scene was so shocking and prominent that everyone in Silver Peak City, who wasn't a sleepy-at office workers in high-rise apartments or nightwalkers on the streets, noticed this miracle-like scene on Evergreen Peak through their windows and from the streets. Someone is actually undergoing a lightning tribulation. Oh my god, I knew that sword-flying video from last month was real. Magic. It's definitely a high-level mage awakening. Someone on Evergreen Peak has become a god. The ninth and thickest bolt of lightning fell with a boom, striking me and reshaping my final mana circuits. Then, the dark clouds quickly receded as if blown away by a gale, and the world slowly calmed down. And I, floating in the air, vanished into the night. That night, Twitter and major social platforms crashed. Countless enthusiasts in Silver Peak City drove to Evergreen Peak overnight, and the dilapidated monastery was nearly crushed by the fanatical crowd. The old priest's phone was ringing off the hook, and he was completely overwhelmed. You guys don't really think we have a Gandalf hidden in this rundown monastery, do you? However, it looks like my cousin Leo has a job again. At this moment, I was slowly hovering 500 meters above Silver Peak City. I used a very high-level arcane spell from the micro-world Greater Invisibility. With my now immense mana reserves, dealing with modern human eyes and radar was more than enough. I floated in the clouds, feeling the surging mana in my body, and couldn't help but laugh out loud. The power of the Crimson Divine Liquid had allowed me to skip the apprentice stage and reach the high adept realm. I was now able to control extremely microscopic mana elements to precisely target and kill every cancer cell in my body. I am officially done with terminal illness and death for the rest of my life. Looking down at the brightly lit, bustling modern city below, all sorts of wild thoughts emerged in my mind. Since I have entered the supernatural, should my next step be to set up a city-wide, ultra-large mana-gathering array beneath this city?